Welcome back. Well, this is the next video in the Kubernetes security series. And today we are going to perform the lab where we are going to implement the RBAC in Kubernetes. And of course, we're going to integrate it with Azure RBAC. So we have discussed a lot about Kubernetes, RBAC, Azure AD, but in this video, we are going to implement it. So what are the steps that we are going to follow to perform this lab? Let me quickly take you through the steps, okay? So if I open my notepad and the very first thing is we need what? What we need? We need a Kubernetes cluster, okay? Then what we need RBAC enabled. Kubernetes RBAC enabled is by default enabled. So what we need Azure AD RBAC enabled. You can do it while creating the Kubernetes cluster, or you can do it later on. I'll show you from where you can do it. This is the basic structure that we need. Then we need to create a group in Azure AD, create a user in Azure AD, okay? Assign user to the group, okay? Now, when we integrate the Azure AD RBAC to the Kubernetes, we need to provide the group. We will provide this group, okay? I hope till now everything is clear. Now we have the RBAC enabled, we have the user, and we have the groups. So what all we need to perform this lab, we need role and role binding. We need cluster role and cluster role bindings. Now, what will we do? In the YAML file for the role and the cluster role, we will assign these roles to the subject, to the identity, one to the user, and let's suppose this one we will assign to the group, and this one we will assign to the user, okay? And we have the same user in the group. That's the reason we can figure it out. So to differentiate this, we're going to create two namespaces, okay? And we are going to give access or permissions as per the namespaces. And we'll see whether we can perform that action or not. Permissions as per the namespace, all right? Now, the thing that we need to keep in mind is when we create this new user, this new user needs to run the Cloud Shell, right? So we need to give some permissions to this user on storage. Contributor would be fine. Then again, we need to fetch the credentials for the AKS. For that, we need to give this user on Kubernetes as a user role. Inbuilt, I'll show you. Okay, with the help of these permissions, user can fetch the credentials or user can run the AKS get credentials command so that it can run other commands on the Kubernetes. But as soon as the user will run kubectl, it will prompt for login because Azure AD integrated RBAC is enabled, and it will ask you to provide the credentials to run kubectl command on the Kubernetes, okay? Now, we have assigned cluster role and the role to the user and to the group. Accordingly, we will try to perform the actions, and we'll see whether we can perform those actions and we cannot. And I'll take you through all the YAML files and all the steps, Okay, it could be a little lengthy video, but it would be for sure a learning experience for all of us. So let's get started. Let me take you through what we have as of now. So right now I have this Kube01 as a Kubernetes cluster. Let me quickly show you. If you go to Kubernetes service, AKS service, and you try to create another one, though we have covered all these things many times, but as per this particular lab, I would like to show for any newcomer who's watching this video. If you are interested, you can check out the old videos where we have explained each and everything. So here, under authentication, you see RBAC. It's a Kubernetes RBAC and it is enabled by default, but this one is not. You can enable it while creating Kubernetes from here, or you can enable it later. So this is the Kubernetes cluster that I have already created. And if I click on the cluster configuration, you can see RBAC is enabled, which is by default AKS managed identity. I have enabled it already. Now here we have to assign the group that I was talking about. So cluster is created. This is enabled. This is enabled. Now we need to create the group user and assign it there. To save the time, I, of course, created the Azure Active Directory group. I'll show you under the groups. We have, let's create another one. Or I think I saw that it was there. Maybe I forgot. Hands-on AKS right there. This is the group. And if I see the members, admin is the member. It's the name of the user, but the email address is different. Email address is cube@pachehra.onmicrosoft.com. Okay. And let me go back to the Kubernetes. Oh, come on, I just clicked on something else. Kubernetes. And this particular lab that I'm trying to show you, I borrowed it from the GitHub. I forgot the name of the gentleman who wrote the book, AKS, Hands-on AKS. And from his GitHub repository, I followed this lab and used those YAML files because I don't write YAML files. I'm not the developer or one who writes the YAML file, but I would like to know how Kubernetes work. That's my job, right? So let's get back to the task. This is the Kube cluster configuration. This is my Kubernetes, and here admin group, click here, go to hands-on AKS, click, we need to select it and we gotta save it. Don't forget to save. It happens, right? So now I have saved it. Now this AKS cluster is integrated with Azure AD, which was already there, but now we have assigned the Azure AD group. Any user inside this Azure AD group would be able to go through the RBAC, or you can utilize the RBAC on those users. Okay. Already now it's in progress. Let me take you through this. Okay. AKS demo 08 if I run, because I am the owner as of now. I have created everything here. kubectl, get nodes. I have one node running here. As you can see already. Now we need to simply go ahead and run this kubectl get pods. We do not have any pods, and kubectl get namespace. Let's see how many namespace we have. We have all the default ones. Now we need to create 2 namespaces, and I'm going to create it as the name no access and delete access. Very simple. That's what the task is. That's the reason I'm saying we are going to create 2 namespaces, no access and Oh. And we have to create a delete access. These are name of the namespaces. You can give any name to the namespaces, but these namespaces are inside the YAML file. That's the only reason I'm not changing the name, but you can give any name to the namespace that you want, but don't forget to change it on your YAML file. Okay. Now what we need to do, we need to run the voting application that we are using from the very first video in the AKS series, and now we are above 50 videos on the AKS series, the Azure Vote YAML file, and we are going to, I'll show you right here, we have this Azure Vote. So we will run kubectl apply -f Azure Vote.yaml, and in the namespace, no access. And we need to run the same Azure voting application in the another namespace as well, which is delete access. So I'm pretty sure you might have guessed it already. No access means our user do not have the right to delete the namespace of the pod inside it. But in delete access namespace, our user would have the access, and I'll show you how. Okay. The only thing I'll show you. The next thing I'll show you is I'm going to open the cluster role YAML file just to show you cat cluster role .yaml file. As you can see, the kind is cluster role. Okay, and this will provide get, watch, and list to whom will bind it. And we are calling it as read only because we are giving the read only permission on the cluster. Okay. Now, if I'll show you cat cluster role binding.yaml. Now here you can see easily, as I was saying, it's a cluster role binding. That's the kind, and that's the metadata that we are giving it for the reference, of course. Now it says reference. This is the API group, which you need to always use while creating the bindings. And this is gonna apply on the group, okay? And this object ID, you need to fetch it from the Azure AD group, okay? And if you wanna fetch it from here, you can simply run, let me clear this out. You have to simply run AZAD group show. What is the name of the group? It was hands on AKS. That's what I remember. And what we are querying object ID. Okay. All right. Now, this is, oh, I misspell it, object ID. It's J, it's not K. Okay, I did a mistake here as well. Hands on, there was an S. Now, that's how you can figure out the object ID of your group, or you can figure it out from the portal as well. It doesn't matter. What matters, you need to update the object ID in the cluster role binding.yaml file right here. You can see right here. Okay, right here. All right. And this binding, as I said, if I open this one, just for the clarification to understand it better, I'm just showing you. This is a read-only role, okay? We can only get, watch, and list pods And this role is binded to this group through the role binding. So whosoever is a member of this group would have this access, which is in the cluster role, and that access is read only. All right, very good. Now let's go ahead and apply these two YAML files. Okay, kubectl apply -f cluster role.yaml and cluster role binding.yaml. Now these two are created and assigned to the group. Now we need to go through and have a look where we have to check the roles as well, the role.yaml and role binding, which has the same thing as I said for the cluster. The difference is this is on the cluster level and the role is on the namespace level. All right, so let me cat it, cat role.yaml. You see, it is, we have given the metadata as delete role for the delete access namespace. And what permission it has the permission of delete. Delete who? Delete pods. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna apply this to the role binding. And what this role binding is hooking up with, it's hooking up with user. It was group in the cluster, right? Now it is user. And this is the user ID, the email address of my user. So this user, we are assigning role directly to this user. And we are also assigning cluster role through the group to the same user. So on the cluster level, this user can only read because it's a part of AKS, but on the namespace level, this user can only delete pods inside delete access namespace only. And that's what we're gonna check. We're gonna try to delete under no access. It won't because it doesn't have the access. Then we'll try to delete in delete access. It will because it has the access through the bindings. However, the most important thing, when this user will log in, it should ask for the prompt because Azure AD is going to take care of, because we have enabled the Azure AD integration RBAC with the Kubernetes. That would be the conclusion of this lab. So we have, we need to run the, let me clear this out first. Clear, kubectl apply -f role.yaml file. We need to create this role, then kubectl apply -f role binding .yaml files. Everything is all set as of now. Now what I should do, I should open a incognito window and do portal.azure.com, and this time I should log in with Cube. Let me fetch it out from there. From here, go to Azure AD and copy it from users. Right here, this is the ID. Go back to this right here, next. And now I have already changed the password for this username because I was preparing for this lab to video it. So it will not prompt me, but if you're trying it first time, it will prompt you to change the password. Of course, until I remember it, because it's been 3 or 4 days when I was performing this lab. Okay, we get it. Now, just wanted to show you this user. I have already given permissions on these 2 storage accounts because I didn't know which one is the Cloud Shell is utilizing. So I just gave the permission, the contributor access to both the storage account and the Kubernetes service. Now, how I did it, I'll show you that. Under this, our lab, if you come here, I'll go to the storage accounts. I have these two storage accounts. I just clicked on this, go to IAM and click on add, click on role assignment. I searched my cube and I gave it the access as in contributor access on the storage account. Similarly, I went on the Kubernetes. These things we need to do, only then our user would be able to see the storage account and the Kubernetes cluster when you log in the Azure portal. Here, exactly the same process. IAM, add, role assignment. Then you need to select the user, cluster user role, Azure Kubernetes AKS cluster user role, so that it can run those commands after authenticating itself through the Azure AD, because AKS is enabled. Azure AD is integrated, RBAC is enabled. Let me show you. That's how you need to assign. Once you assign these roles, it can see these things. All resources, what all it can see? Only these 3 resources. This is we are logged in with the cube. So if I go here, click here, now it is giving me this error. It could be because I have removed the user. We'll check it, and it is always good whenever you encounter an issue during your lab, because that's the best way of learning. If you do not encounter an issue, you didn't learn much, you just followed the steps. But if you encounter an issue, trust me, you need to go through a lot of blogs, a lot of troubleshooting, and a lot of learning in the end. So let's see why it's unhappy. Meanwhile, AKS get credentials. Name is Cube01. Group is Cube RG. That's what I remember. See, yes. Okay, now we have fetched the credential to log in to this AKS cluster. Now it's time to run the command like kubectl get pods, or let's do get nodes. You see that? It is simply saying to sign in, use a web browser to open this device login and authenticate. Why? Because we have enabled it. You have seen like it's more than 50 videos we have created on AKS, and we were learning AKS, not like it is running on the production, but we were learning each and every aspect of the Kubernetes, and we were using the root user always. But this time the RBAC is enabled, and it is not allowing us to run kubectl get nodes. So if I log in here, I'll click here, I'll type in the code, and you'll see what it would say, and everything would be clear, like it is taken care by AKS AAD client. You are signing into AKS Azure AD client. See, that's what it says. Yes. Now you have signed into the Azure Kubernetes Service AAD client application on your device, right? So that's how you assign access to your users when RBAC is enabled on your Kubernetes cluster. Now we are signed in. Now we are able to fetch the get nodes, or even kubectl get pods under namespace no access. See, we can get these. Don't worry about the image pull back off. We have already created one video as a troubleshooting video, and we have discussed it. But right now we only need to check the lab on the RBAC perspective. And if we run delete access namespace, we can see these pods as well. Now let's try to delete it, okay? So what we'll do kubectl delete pods. Okay, now where are we deleting? We are deleting on, let's say, no axis. It says error. Okay, because I did not specify something. Oh, I did not specify the pod. So rather specifying a pod, I should specify all. That would work. It's fine. We only worry about delete and the namespace. So if I do this, it is able to delete it. And this is strange because it shouldn't, right? Our user should not have the access to delete it. Let's try to delete on the delete axis. Here we have the access, so we should be able to get the, we should be able to delete it. Now, the beauty is somewhere we have missed in the lab, and that will help us to learn a little more. And I'm excited to it, and I'll go and let's go and troubleshoot on it, and let's find out why it allowed us to delete this one. It shouldn't. Okay, we are logged in as a cube. Let's go through each and every step just to figure it out what is wrong.